Another year of adventure and another year of adventures coming to an end, and it's been a year of lots of ups and lots of downs when it comes to the adventure this year, with some awesome memories made, lots and lots of epic views, and a year where it didn't really seem to stop raining, from named storms battering me or to the melting sun on the hills. This year of adventure had everything, and with that being said, I thought it would be a good time to wrap up the end of the year by taking a look back at my 7 most memorable and favourite adventures of the year of 2023. So let's jump into it with number 7. The Secret Pyramid of Scotland. Okay, it's not really that secret, but it was a great fun trip and took me back to basics of riding a bike. The simple and most enjoyable adventures for me are when I'm riding to somewhere to see something. It's why I started cycling in the first place, so rides with a destination are always going to be my most fun and enjoyable adventures. And this adventure was great fun. I had just finished riding the longest motorway, the M6, and I was not ready to finish the adventure there. So starting at the Scottish border, I would head to the Secret Pyramid. A 230-mile adventure would be all that stood in my way. And in typical Scottish fashion, it would be a ride of great beauty, rain and sunshine, and little hidden treasures along the way. It sure wasn't easy the whole way, with plenty of hiker bike and trails that were non-existent, and an adventure where I couldn't seem to find that perfect camp spot that I longed for, until, well, I struck gold and set up camp in an epic spot before my final day on the trails to finally reach that awesome, epic pyramid. And when I did finally make it to that pyramid, it felt so good to have made it. The sun shining and just being able to sit and enjoy the unique view of Scotland right next to a pyramid. All in all, this was just one of them adventures that I will look back with fond memories. This one was more about one particular moment on the adventure more than the adventure as a whole. The adventure was simple. I was heading up to the Cairngorms to ride the Cairngorms Loop, but before that I decided I was to ride to the oldest tree. So starting in the capital city of Scotland, I was to make my way just 120 miles to find that oldest tree in Britain. So what made this adventure so special? Well, after my first day of riding, I would ride into the most epic of sunsets, surrounded by nothing but nature. I would pitch up my tent up high in this most beautiful location. It was an incredibly calm night, no wind, which meant it would get cold, but also meant I was able to just enjoy sticking my head out of the tent and looking up into the endless starry night sky. And with just how amazing the sunset was the night before, the sunrise in the morning was just perfect. An icy cold morning with a frozen tent looking over these endless views. A moment of feeling like I was in the perfect place at the most perfect time. By far, this was the best night out I had this entire year. With just how beautiful it was and how peaceful it was just absolutely perfect. The Cairngorms Loop. After visiting the oldest tree, I would continue my adventure into the Cairngorms, and this ride holds a special place in my mind this year, not because it was the most beautiful, not because the trails were the best, and not really because I really enjoyed it. Well, at least at the time I didn't. This adventure made it onto this list because of the feeling of getting to the end. The relief, that rewarding feeling of getting to the end of this ride was high. Let me explain a bit if you didn't watch that video. The adventure would start out really typical. Quite windy, but nothing too extreme. However, on the second day, as I made my way around the Cairngorms National Park, storms would roll in and the trails would turn into these endless hiker bike. With these relentless winds, 70-mile-an-hour winds, little did I know at the time, but this storm had a name, Storm Babette. Just had to keep pushing forward slowly and surely. I also spent a night in the bovie and listening to the winds howl outside. This was a ride that tested me and allowed me to feel that pure feeling of relief that I actually made it to the end. It was a true test. Not a feeling that I find myself getting to feel all that often, but this was one of them adventures that, although at the time it was a grind, it was a struggle, looking back on it brings these great memories and a great sense of accomplishment. This year, I wanted to get a bit more creative with my adventures. I wanted to think outside the box and ride places you might not really think to ride. Places you might normally think, is an adventure even possible there? So that's why this year, I've been exploring the motorways. That's right, the motorways. The longest and busiest motorway. But by far a great memory this year was riding around the M25, the busiest motorway. A 170-mile loop exploring the ancient woodlands surrounding it, all while sticking close to that roaring road. Well, it actually turned out to be an incredibly fun route, and while it's not some picturesque remote place to ride, it turned out to be this really fun route, with lots of stunning woodland trails to ride through. The trails were fun and even the camping was great, if you like to camp surrounded by trees, but you might need your earplugs though. But ultimately, this was just a better than expected ride. Going into it, I didn't really know what to expect, but it turned out so much better than I thought it was going to be. It was also the first ride after some illness, so that made it all that little more sweeter to put that smile back on my face. If you live in the UK, then you will know this year wasn't a particularly dry year. So this year I did decide to escape and get a little bit of sun with a little trip across the English Channel and hit the French coast, cycling from Cherbourg to Calais. A bit of a trip down memory lane from when I cycled around the coast of France, Spain and Portugal 10 years ago. So this trip not only was one of my favourites because of the weather, but because the sentimental reason behind it. Reliving some of my best moments of my life. Adventure was just a pure blast. Cruising along the beaches in the morning sun. Sleeping on the beaches listening to the waves. Chilling on them beaches. And pedalling alongside the sea is always my favourite thing to do. So it's no surprise that this adventure made it onto the list. Although nothing spectacular really happened along this ride, it was just an absolute pure joy to just cruise along them coastal French roads and gravel tracks. The pub. Hate it or love it, it's a big part of British culture and you can find a pub in the UK nearly anywhere you go. So a nod to the pub culture in the UK, I decided I would visit the highest pub in Britain, the Tan Hill in the Yorkshire Dales, followed by the lowest pub, the Admiral Wells in Cambridgeshire. This was just an epic trip. 600 miles in total to visit 2 pubs for just 2 pints. The trails were fun and I just generally really enjoyed this trip. It was early in the year so the conditions were still cold, but the sun was shining bright on this adventure. As this adventure started on the south coast, I headed into the north of England. It was awesome to see how the landscape changes along the way, from the rolling hills of the south to the more rugged landscape of the Yorkshire Dales. This ride had a bit of everything, from stunning sunsets to ice cold morning where I could enjoy the crunch of icy trails under my tyres. Yorkshire puddings for breakfast, and of course a couple of pints. With continuing on to the lowest pub after the highest pub, you can probably tell why it is high on this list of best adventures this year. Downhill. I think many of you could have guessed this adventure would be on the list, and it was certainly my most favourite adventure of the year. The GB Divide, cycling the length of Britain off-road from John O'Groats to Land's End, 1200 miles of nothing but epic adventure. And of course, this adventure had everything. Starting early in the year, end of February, there would be of course some good old UK weather to deal with, but this weather made some of the most memorable moments of the trip. From the beaming winter sun in the early mornings, to riding over the snow-topped Welsh hills, to the of course very rainy Cornwall. A ride like this will always leave you with lasting memories of how you overcome all the obstacles along the way, how each day made you feel, sometimes the feeling of just wanting to get to the end, and sometimes that amazing feeling of being in the moment, descending down a mountain with the sun bright in the sky, shining in your face, pedaling a bike through all of them endless remote trails, camping in all these incredible places, and of course, some good old Cornish pasties. This adventure was full of moments that are now burned into my memory. The way the wind was blowing, the way the gravel sounded under my tyres, and that feeling of pure joy arriving to the finish line. This ride was by far my favourite adventure of the year, and possibly my favourite video I ever set out to make, especially the GB Divide full story video. If you haven't seen that, I really would appreciate you going to check it out. So that wraps up another year of adventure, and I hope you have enjoyed following the adventures this year, and I hope you will continue to follow in 2024. Let me know down below in the comments which was your favourite adventure of the year, and a huge thank you to all of you for the support this year, and thank you to all the new and old subscribers to the channel. So until next year, happy holidays, keep smiling, enjoy the adventure. Peace!